So when we say, what is anthropology? We answer the question by saying it's the study of all aspects of what it means to be human, past and present. Franz Boas is our founding father, particularly of cultural anthropology, but really of what we call the four fields. He's there in those pictures. Franz Boas was actually, he was a German Jew, and he was looking for kind of new ways of understanding the world. He studied physics, actually. He studied the shape of water, so he was already kind of a different thinker to begin with. But then, in the late 1800s, he decided to go to the coastline of North America, up where the Inuit or the Eskimo live today, up in Alaska, and map it. There hadn't been a detailed map made of the coastline. So if you can imagine in the late 1800s what it was like out in the Arctic zone, out in the middle of nowhere. So he was dependent on the Eskimo, who call themselves Inuit today. He was dependent on the Inuit to survive. And so he spent years with the Inuit. And as he did, he actually began to become more interested in their cultural practices than in the coastline mapping, actually. So what you can see in these photos is he's actually performing some of the poses that the Inuit practiced in their religious ceremonies, and you can see him wearing the clothing of the Inuit there. What Franz Boas said is that he came from this context in Europe that said basically Europeans are the most evolved and best, humans out there, and that everybody should eventually become like us, become European. They should have cultural practices like us, and they should evolve to look like us. They should speak like us, and if they don't, then they're not as evolved. They're unevolved. So that was the attitude he came with. But after spending time with these Inuit, he discovered that actually their cultural practices, their evolutionary traits, and their language and all of the rest actually made complete sense for their environment. And so he said, why should they change? They're extremely well adapted to their environment with their own cultural context. So he really changed that perspective that was very Eurocentric and racist, really. And he said, no, what we need to do is to understand about cultures and peoples on their own terms, not in relationship to Europeans, but what is really interesting and unique about each group around the world in its own context. So he founded anthropology at Columbia College in the United States, and he said, we're going to approach this in 4 different ways. We're going to look at it in terms of people's cultural practice. We're going to look at it in terms of their past. We're going to look at it in terms of their language, and we're going to look at their physical bodies to compare them around the world and see how similar to one another they are or how different. So let's get some definitions for we've got cultural, which is the class that we're in. Cultural anthropologists study the social lives of living communities. So that would be what we're going to be doing in this class. This class is looking not at ancient dead people, but at what all people around the world do in terms of their culture, including Americans, because everybody's got culture, right? We tend to think of anthropologists as going out exotic places, which sometimes we do, but also we focus on our own cultural contexts as well. We'll look at archaeology, study of past cultures by excavating sites where people lived and worked. So this is the past of human cultures. Cultural anthropology and archaeology work closely together because oftentimes archaeologists will draw on living groups of people in order to understand what they're seeing in their excavations. Biological anthropology, the study of biological aspects of humans past and present, including non-human primates. So here we're looking at the physical evolution of humans. How is it that we look the way that we do? How have our physical bodies changed over time? Linguistic anthropology is the study of how people communicate with one another through language and how it creates group identity. So linguistic anthropology is focusing on language, which again is very closely tied to culture, as is identity. So linguistic anthropologists oftentimes work closely with cultural anthropologists. We have these 4 fields, but our goal is that they work together and give us a holistic picture of what human groups are like. Holism is the idea that we make an effort to synthesize distinct approaches and findings into a single interpretation. We should all be working together. All 4 fields should be working together to make discoveries about people and cultures. So we do this in a variety of different ways. One example of this comes to us from Papua New Guinea. And this is a cultural anthropologist who was working in Papua New Guinea in the 1960s. And what they discovered was that there was a high rate of death. According to the locals, the high rate of death was due to what they called kuru, which is black magic. Now, many cultures believe in black magic around the world, and many cultures believe that black magic can be used to kill your enemies. And so that's the belief in Papua New Guinea. And so they would say, somebody's spiritually attacked this person and now they're dying. The anthropologist wanted to find out if there was a biological explanation, so they called in biological anthropologists who took blood samples of the individuals, and what they found was that they had a particular disease that was related to mad cow disease. You might have heard of mad cow disease. Anybody aware of how you get mad cow disease? Well, we get it through cow cannibalism, basically. Cows will, up until the 90s, the cattle companies would take the leftover parts of cattle that they didn't sell, and they would grind it up and feed it back to their own cattle to save some money. This caused mad cow disease, which is a degenerative nerve disease. Over time, you lose control of your ability to control your muscles, and you eventually die from this. It exists in your nervous system. So guess how they were getting it in Papua New Guinea? Yep, just the same way that cows get it. They were practicing cannibalism, which is actually a well-established death ritual across Papua New Guinea to consume one's dead loved ones. But what they found was that not only was kuru being transmitted through cannibalism, but also women and children were getting it more often. And they realized, the cultural anthropologists came back in and looked at their death rituals, and they realized that, well, there's obviously some parts of grandma that you want to eat more than other parts. You want to eat, the flank steak or whatever. And you less want to eat the spinal cord and the brain. Guess where this mad cow disease relative lives? It lives in the spinal fluid, and so you'll find it in the brain and in the spine. So women and children were being, attacked with kuru more often than males. So in response, the Papua New Guinean government said, okay, no more cannibalism. It was outlawed. But of course, people didn't stop doing it right away. Can you imagine if somebody came in and said, you have to change how you dispose of your dead? No more burying grandma, you have to eat her now. It was basically the same for the Papua New Guineans. So they didn't stop consuming their dead for a long time. Today, there's probably pockets where people still practice cannibalism, but for the most part, because many people in Papua New Guinea have become Christians, they probably don't really practice it too much today. Okay, one more little plug while I have you. Major in anthropology. we have lots of different careers in anthropology that many people don't think of when they think of anthropology. So, for example, education, healthcare, nonprofit, marketing. Um, so again, healthcare is a great one. Healthcare needs the input of cultural anthropologists to help them deal with cross-cultural situations in healthcare settings, as well as understanding the culture of healthcare in the United States in general. Also in marketing and publishing, basically we do what they want, which is that we study people, and we try to understand their desires and why they behave the certain ways they behave. And marketing firms are really attracted to that. I'm going to highlight one field, which is forensic anthropology. This is probably one that many people have heard of. Um, so, what do forensic anthropologists do? They go to crime scenes and investigate. They work with the police and the coroner and answer the question of how this person died. So usually they're going to show up in a place where there's a skeletal remains, these are remains that have been there long enough to no longer have flesh on the body. And they'll be asked to figure out how this person died. They'll study the bones in order to answer that question. So if you watch that bones show, that's actually what she does. Pay in the field, 54 to 75,000 starting per year, so it's decent pay. And the job outlook is a 6% growth, but it is an area of strong competition because many people are aware of it. They call it the CIS effect because of all these TV shows that use forensics now. More people are going into the field. Yet there's still growth and there's still opportunity in that field. Other work for anthropologists, some of these other ones that I suggested, that career growth is even higher. It's expected to be 12%. So there's lots of work with a degree in anthropology. And if you're interested, Pierce College offers an associate's degree for transfer, and we have lots and lots of anthropology classes, more than your average community college. You can see a list of them here, and most of these would fulfill your AAT or associate's degree for transfer. But most of those classes that you take for transfer, you'd be taking to fulfill a general ed requirement anyway, so nothing to lose. If you like anthropology, email me and let me know and we can talk about that. All right, so welcome to your course. Looking forward to seeing you throughout the semester. Feel free to contact me if you have questions, and we'll see you later.